The hammer slipped from my grip and clattered onto the porch boards, nearly taking out my thumb in the process. James Walker, master contractor for 23 years, couldn't even nail down a loose board without screwing it up. Maybe that should have been my first clue that everything else in my life was about to fall apart too. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. "You're blocking the driveway again," Olivia called from the front door, her voice carrying that particular edge she'd perfected over our 19 years of marriage. Sharp enough to cut glass, cold enough to freeze beer. I looked at my beat-up Ford pickup, parked exactly where it had been every day for the past 6 months since I'd retired. Same spot, same truck, same wife, finding new ways to make me feel like I was taking up too much space in my own life. "Sorry, honey," I called back, though we both knew I wasn't moving it. Not when I was trying to fix the porch she'd been complaining about for 3 years. Just trying to finish this before it rains. The door slammed. Subtle as a brick through a window, my Olivia. I picked up the hammer and tried again, thinking about how we'd gotten here. 45 years old, hands that could build anything, and somehow I'd managed to construct a marriage that was falling apart faster than a house built on quicksand. The irony wasn't lost on me, even if my sense of humor was getting pretty dark these days. The retirement had been Olivia's idea, sort of. "You've worked hard enough, James. Time to enjoy life." What she'd really meant was time for her to enjoy life without me underfoot all day, cramping her style at the law office where she worked as a paralegal. Russell Klein's paralegal, to be specific. Rusty, as his friends called him, though I was starting to suspect Olivia called him something else entirely. Ben, our 17-year-old, came around the corner bouncing a basketball. Kid was built like me, tall, broad shoulders, hands that could palm a basketball like it was an orange. He had his mother's brains, though, which was probably why he was the only one in the family who still talked to me like I mattered. "Dad, you know Mom's been staying late at the office like every night this week, right?" I paused mid-swing. "She's got that big case coming up, the Morrison divorce?" "Yeah, about that." Ben caught the ball and held it against his hip. "I saw her yesterday, downtown coming out of the Marriott with some guy in a BMW. Wasn't you?" The hammer felt heavier in my hand. "You sure it was your mom?" "Dad, I've known what Mom looks like for 17 years. It was her. And the guy looked like that lawyer she's always talking about. The one with the fancy car and the expensive suits. Rusty Klein." Of course it was Rusty Klein. I should have been angry. Should have felt that surge of righteous fury that comes when you find out your wife is cheating. Instead, I felt something worse. Relief, like a puzzle piece finally clicking into place, making sense of all the cold shoulders, the late nights, the way she looked at me like I was something she'd stepped in. "Thanks for telling me, Ben." "Dad, are you okay?" I managed what I hoped was a reassuring smile. "I'm fine, kiddo. Just thinking." That was a lie. I wasn't thinking. I was calculating. 23 years of building things had taught me that before you tear something down, you better know exactly what you're dealing with. Structure, foundation, weak points. And right now, I needed to figure out just how rotten the foundation of my marriage really was. Ben headed inside, and I went back to hammering. But my mind was elsewhere, running through the signs I'd been too stupid or too trusting to see. The new clothes Olivia had been buying, the way she'd started doing her hair different, the credit card bills that didn't quite add up, the fact that she'd been pushing me to open that safe deposit box downtown, the one I'd had for years but never used much. "James?" Patty Sharp's voice cut through my thoughts like a rusty saw. Olivia's best friend since college, Patty was the kind of woman who knew everyone's business and made sure everyone else knew it too. She was standing at the edge of my driveway, perfectly coiffed hair and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Afternoon, Patty?" "Working hard, I see. Olivia mentioned you've been keeping busy with all these little projects around the house." The way she said little projects made it sound like I was playing with Lincoln Logs instead of maintaining a house that was worth more than Patty made in 3 years. "Someone's got to keep things from falling apart," I said, which was probably more honest than I'd intended. Patty's smile got sharper. "Oh, I'm sure Olivia appreciates having such a handy husband around the house. Though I imagine it must be an adjustment, having you home all the time now." There it was, the not-so-subtle hint that I was in the way, that my own wife found my presence inconvenient. "I try to stay out of her hair," I said carefully. "Smart man. Career women need their space, you know, their independence. Olivia's been saying how much she's been enjoying her work lately, really throwing herself into it. Russell Klein thinks very highly of her, you know." The way she said Russell's name, with just a little too much emphasis, told me everything I needed to know. Patty knew. Hell, probably half the town knew. I was the only idiot who'd been hammering away on his porch while his wife was hammering away with her boss. That's nice, I managed. Well, I should run. Tell Olivia I called. We're supposed to meet for drinks later. Girl talk, you know how it is. I watched her drive away in her little red Honda, probably already on the phone, spreading whatever gossip she'd come to collect. The only thing thinner than our marriage was my hairline, but at least my hair wasn't actively trying to humiliate me in public. That evening, Olivia came home late again. No explanation, no apology, just a tired sigh and a comment about how the porch looked fine, I guess. She heated up leftover Chinese food and ate it standing at the kitchen counter, scrolling through her phone. How was work? I asked. Busy. The Morrison case is getting complicated. Patty stopped by. Said you two were meeting for drinks? Something flickered across her face. Oh, right. Rain check. Too much work to catch up on. Liar. The word sat in my throat like a stone, but I swallowed it down. Not yet. I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with before I made my move. After she went to bed, I sat in my workshop in the basement, surrounded by tools that had never let me down, thinking about foundations and structure and what happens when the thing you've built your life on turns out to be rotten at the core. The next morning, I found an envelope slipped under my workshop door. No return address, just my name written in block letters. Inside were photographs. High quality, professional looking. Olivia and Rusty Klein coming out of the Marriott. Olivia and Rusty Klein holding hands in the parking lot of some restaurant I didn't recognize. Olivia and Rusty Klein kissing like teenagers in the front seat of his BMW. There was a note, too, typed on plain white paper. Thought you should know. A friend. I sat there for a long time, looking at the pictures. My wife of 19 years, the mother of my children, wrapped around another man like ivy on a fence post. I should have been devastated. Should have been planning to confront her, to scream and shout and demand explanations. Instead, I found myself thinking about that safe deposit box she'd been so interested in, the one she kept asking about, wondering what I kept in there, the one she seemed to think contained some kind of hidden fortune. I smiled for the first time in months. It wasn't a nice smile. Looks like my wife got a room upgrade and downgraded me, but she had no idea what she'd just started. The phone rang 3 times before Brick McGregor picked up. McGregor Investigations, we find what you don't want found. Subtle as always, Brick. Jimmy. Jesus, how long's it been? 2 years? 3? Something like that. I'd known Brick since high school. He'd been a cop for 15 years before a bullet in the knee convinced him to go private. Now he spent his days following cheating spouses and insurance fraudsters, which made him exactly the right guy for my current situation. What can I do for you, buddy? I need some help with a personal matter. There was a pause. In the background, I could hear the sound of typing and what might have been a police scanner. Your personal matter got a name? Olivia and Russell Klein. Another pause, longer this time. Ah, shit, Jimmy, I'm sorry. You know about it? I know Klein's got a reputation. Expensive tastes, expensive habits. Word around town is he's been working late a lot lately, if you know what I mean. I knew what he meant. Can you help me out? Of course I can. But Jimmy, you sure you want to go down this road? Sometimes it's better not to know the details. I already know the details, Brick. What I need is evidence. We met at Murphy's bar that afternoon. Murphy's was the kind of place where construction workers and cops went to drink away their problems, which made it perfect for our conversation. Brick looked older than his 47 years, gray creeping into his black hair, lines around his eyes that came from seeing too much of the worst side of human nature. So what exactly are you looking for? He asked after we'd ordered our beers. Everything. Photos, phone records, financial stuff. I want to know how long this has been going on, how serious it is, and what it's costing me. Brick nodded. Standard cheating spouse package. I can do surveillance, check hotel records, maybe get a look at their phone bills. What's your timeline? Soon as possible. Olivia's been pushing me to do something with that safe deposit box I've got downtown. I think she's planning something. What kind of something? The kind where she tries to prove I've been hiding assets from her. Setting up for a divorce, maybe. Brick whistled low. Smart lady. Evil, but smart. You got anything in that box? Nothing she'd be interested in. Some old documents, my dad's watch, couple $100 in cash. But she seems to think I'm sitting on a fortune. Where'd she get that idea? I thought about it. Hell if I know. Maybe because I've always been careful with money. Never spent much, always saved. She probably figures I've got accounts she doesn't know about. Do you? Nope. What you see is what you get. House is paid off, got about 50 grand in savings. My pension from the union. Nothing fancy, but enough to retire on if we're careful. Brick made some notes in a little notebook. Okay, here's what I'm thinking. I'll start with basic surveillance, see what their routine is. Then I'll dig into the financial stuff, see if Klein's been spending money on her. Hotel records, restaurant receipts, that kind of thing. Should take me about a week to get a good picture. What's it going to cost me? For you? 500 plus expenses. And Jimmy? He looked up from his notebook. Whatever you're planning to do with this information, be smart about it. Don't give her ammunition to use against you in court. I nodded, but I was already thinking about that safe deposit box and the look on Olivia's face when she found out what was really in it. That evening, I decided to test the waters. Olivia was in the kitchen, making herself a salad and completely ignoring the pot roast I'd spent 2 hours cooking. Ran into Bob Morrison today, I said casually. Bob was the guy going through the messy divorce Olivia was supposedly working on. He mentioned the case was wrapping up soon. Olivia's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Oh, yeah, we're making good progress. That's great. Must be a relief not to have to work so many late nights. Actually, we've got another big case coming up. Might be even more demanding. Another lie. I could see it in the way she wouldn't meet my eyes, the slight flush in her cheeks. Well, I'm proud of you, honey. Russell Klein's lucky to have such a dedicated employee. This time she did look at me, and for just a second, I saw something that might have been guilt flicker across her face. He's a good boss? I'm sure he is. The next few days passed in a strange kind of suspended animation. Olivia kept up her routine of late nights and early mornings, barely speaking to me except to complain about something I'd done wrong. I kept up my routine of home improvement projects and pretending I didn't know my marriage was a sham. But I was watching now. Really watching. And once you start looking for the signs, they're everywhere. The new perfume she'd started wearing. The way she guarded her phone like it contained state secrets. The fact that she'd started going to the gym again after years of making excuses. The credit card bill that showed charges at Victoria's Secret, even though she'd been wearing the same ratty pajamas to bed for months. On Thursday, Brick called. You free to meet? I've got some stuff to show you. We met at a diner outside town, the kind of place where the coffee was strong and the waitresses minded their own business. Brick slid a manila envelope across the table. Your wife and Klein have been busy, he said. They've got a regular routine, Tuesday and Thursday afternoons at the Marriott downtown. Klein pays cash, always gets the same room. They usually stay about 2 hours. I opened the envelope. More photos, these ones with timestamps. Olivia going into the hotel at 2:15 p.m., coming out at 4:30 p.m., hair mussed, looking satisfied in a way I hadn't seen in years. There's more, Brick continued. Klein's been spending money on her. Jewelry, clothes, fancy dinners. I tracked down receipts for about $3,000 in the past 2 months alone. $3,000? Guy's got expensive tastes. And get this, he's married too. Wife's name is Patricia. They've got 2 kids in college. She has no idea what hubby's been up to. I studied the photos, feeling something cold and hard settling in my chest. Not anger, exactly. More like resolve. You want me to keep digging? Brick asked. Yeah. And Brick? I want you to look into Klein himself. Financial stuff, professional stuff, everything. You planning something specific? I smiled, and this time I didn't try to make it nice. Let's just say I want to be prepared for all possibilities. That night, Olivia announced she'd be working late again. Big deadline tomorrow, she said, not even bothering to make it sound convincing. No problem, I said. I'll probably head down to Murphy's, shoot some pool with the guys. But instead of going to Murphy's, I drove downtown to the Marriott. Sure enough, there was Klein's BMW in the parking lot. Silver, pristine, probably cost more than I made in 6 months back when I was working. I sat in my truck for a while, thinking about what I wanted to do. The smart thing would be to drive away, let Brick gather his evidence, file for divorce through proper channels. The satisfying thing would be to march up to that hotel room and kick down the door. Instead, I did something that fell right in between smart and satisfying. I got out of my truck and walked over to Klein's BMW. Beautiful car, really. Leather interior, all the bells and whistles. Must be nice to have that kind of money to throw around, especially when you were throwing it around on someone else's wife. I pulled out my pocket knife and walked around to the rear of the car. The tires were expensive too, probably cost $200 each. Such a shame when bad things happen to expensive tires. The knife went into the sidewall with a satisfying hiss. Air started leaking out immediately, and I stood there for a moment listening to the sound of Klein's perfect day getting a little less perfect. By the time he and Olivia came out of that hotel, his fancy BMW would be sitting on a flat tire, and he'd have some explaining to do about why he was at a hotel in the middle of the afternoon instead of at his office. I got back in my truck and drove home, whistling for the first time in months. It wasn't much of a revenge, but it was a start. And sometimes, when you're building something new, you have to start with small pieces and work your way up to the big stuff. When Olivia came home 3 hours later, she seemed agitated. "Everything okay?" I asked innocently. "Fine," she snapped. "Just some car trouble." "That's too bad. Your car seemed fine this morning." She shot me a sharp look. "Not my car. Russell's. We had to call a tow truck." "Huh. Bad luck." "Yeah," she said, but she was studying my face like she was looking for something. "Bad luck." The next morning, I found another envelope under my workshop door. This time, it wasn't photos. It was legal documents. Divorce papers, already filled out, just waiting for signatures. And a note in Olivia's handwriting. "We need to talk about the safe deposit box. Tonight." I sat back in my chair and smiled. Showtime was coming, and I had a feeling it was going to be quite a performance. The First National Bank of our fair city was built in 1962, back when banks were designed to look like temples and inspire confidence in the financial system. Marble floors, high ceilings, and the kind of solid, imposing architecture that said your money was safe here. Today, it was about to become the stage for what I hoped would be the most satisfying hour of my life. I arrived at 10 a.m. sharp, wearing my best jeans and a clean flannel shirt. Not exactly courthouse attire, but I figured if Olivia wanted to play games, she could deal with getting a blue-collar husband instead of the refined gentleman she'd apparently been expecting. Olivia was already there, standing near the customer service desk with her divorce lawyer, a sharp-faced woman named Patricia Vance who looked like she ate nails for breakfast. Rusty Klein stood beside them, trying to look important in his $1,000 suit. He'd apparently gotten his tire fixed. "James," Olivia said when she saw me. Her voice was cool, professional, like we were strangers meeting for a business transaction instead of a married couple about to air their dirty laundry in public. "Olivia. Rusty." I nodded at Klein, who had the grace to look uncomfortable. "Fancy meeting you here." Lenny Morrison, the bank manager, approached our little group with the kind of nervous energy that came from knowing he was about to witness something unpleasant. Lenny had been managing this branch for 15 years, and he'd seen his share of domestic disputes played out in front of his safe deposit boxes. "Mr. Walker," he said, shaking my hand. "I understand you need to access box 247? "That's right, Lenny, though I should mention, I'm not sure why it requires such a big audience." Patricia Vance stepped forward, all business. "Mr. Walker, as I explained to Mr. Morrison, we have a court order requiring the contents of this box to be inventoried as part of the divorce proceedings. Your wife has reason to believe you may have been concealing assets." I looked at Olivia, who was staring at me with a mixture of anticipation and suspicion. "Concealing assets? Honey, you've had access to all our bank accounts for 19 years. When exactly was I supposed to be squirreling away this secret fortune?" "The box, James," she said. "You never let me see what was in the box." "You never asked to see what was in the box." "I'm asking now." Rusty Klein cleared his throat. "Perhaps we could just get this over with. I have a meeting at 11. I smiled at him. "Of course you do, Rusty. Busy man like you, I'm sure your schedule is packed. A lot of clients to service." The double meaning wasn't lost on him. His face reddened slightly, but he didn't respond. Lenny led us back to the safe deposit box area, a small room lined with metal boxes of various sizes. Box 247 was mine, a medium-sized unit I'd rented years ago, mostly because my father had always said a man should have a place to keep his important papers away from the house. "I'll need both keys," Lenny said. I handed over my key, and Olivia produced hers from her purse. The fact that she'd brought it told me she'd been planning this for a while. The box slid out smoothly, and Lenny placed it on the small table in the center of the room. Everyone gathered around like vultures around roadkill. "Go ahead, James," Patricia Vance said. "Open it." I looked around the room. Olivia, practically vibrating with anticipation. Rusty, trying to look bored but obviously curious. The lawyer, already mentally calculating her fees. Lenny, who was clearly enjoying the drama despite his professional demeanor. "You know," I said conversationally, "this reminds me of that old game show. What was it called? Let's Make a Deal? Olivia, you've chosen what's behind door number 3. Hope you're not disappointed." I lifted the lid. For a moment, nobody moved. They were all staring into the box, trying to process what they were seeing. Inside were manila folders, lots of them, neatly organized and labeled, and sitting on top of the folders was a single sheet of paper with "Read me first," written in my handwriting. Olivia reached for it, but Patricia Vance stopped her. "Don't touch anything. We need to document this properly." But I reached in and picked up the note. "I think this one's addressed to all of us," I said, and began to read aloud. "To whom it may concern, if you're reading this, it means my wife has finally decided to find out what I've been hiding in this box. Congratulations, Olivia. You found my secret. It's not money. It's not stocks or bonds or hidden bank accounts. It's evidence. Evidence of what you've been doing with Russell Klein for the past 6 months. The silence in that little room was so complete you could have heard a pin drop in the next county." I reached into the box and pulled out the first folder. This one's labeled Hotel Records, Marriott Downtown, Room 412, every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon. Amazing what you can find when you know where to look. Olivia's face had gone white. Rusty looked like he was about to be sick. I pulled out another folder. This one's financial records, jewelry purchases, restaurant bills, that nice little weekend getaway to Boston last month. You told me that was a legal conference, Olivia. Turns out it was educational, just not in the way I thought. Patricia Vance found her voice. "Mr. Walker, I need to advise you that..." "And this," I continued, pulling out a small digital recorder, "is my personal favorite. Amazing what people will say when they think they're alone. Amazing what they'll say about the husband who's supposedly too stupid to figure out what's going on." I pressed play. Olivia's voice filled the room, clear as day. "He has no idea. God, Russell, sometimes I think James is the most oblivious man on earth. He just sits there in his little workshop, playing with his tools, completely clueless." Rusty's voice answered, "What about the money? You said he might have accounts you don't know about." "I don't know. Maybe. He's always been secretive about finances. But even if he doesn't, the house alone is worth $300,000. And his pension, the savings accounts, I'll be fine." "What about the kids?" "Ben will understand eventually. Ava's already in college. She's got her own life. They'll adjust." I stopped the recording. The silence was even deeper this time. Lenny Morrison was staring at the floor, clearly wishing he was anywhere else. Patricia Vance looked like she was calculating how quickly she could distance herself from this disaster. Rusty Klein was sweating, despite the air conditioning. And Olivia was looking at me like she'd never seen me before. "How?" she whispered. "How what? How did I find out? How long have I known? How did I manage to be smart enough to figure it out despite being such an oblivious idiot?" "James, I can explain." "No need," I said, putting the folders back in the box. "It's all pretty self-explanatory. You've been cheating on me with Rusty here for 6 months. You've been planning to divorce me and take half of everything I've worked for. And you thought I was too stupid to see it coming." I closed the box and looked around the room. Well, surprise. Turns out the stupid husband was paying attention after all. Patricia Vance cleared her throat. "Mr. Walker, while this is certainly illuminating, it doesn't change the legal requirements for asset disclosure in a divorce proceeding." "You're absolutely right," I said. "So let me disclose my assets. The house, which is in both our names. The savings accounts, which Olivia has access to and knows about. My pension, which is a matter of public record. And this box, which as you can see contains no hidden fortune, just evidence of my wife's infidelity." I looked at Olivia. "Sorry to disappoint you, honey. No secret millions, no hidden accounts, just a husband who was smart enough to document what his wife was doing behind his back." Rusty Klein finally found his voice. "This is entrapment. You can't record people without their consent." "Actually," I said, "I can. Massachusetts is a 2-party consent state for phone calls, but not for in-person conversations in public places. That recording was made in the lobby of the Marriott, which is a public space. Perfectly legal." I'd done my homework. Brick had made sure of that. Olivia was staring at me with a mixture of shock and something that might have been respect. "You've been planning this." "I've been protecting myself. There's a difference." Lenny Morrison stepped forward. "If we're done here, I'd like to secure the box and get back to normal business." "We're done," I said. I looked at Olivia one more time. "Unless there's anything else you'd like to find in my secret hiding place?" She shook her head, still looking stunned. As we filed out of the safe deposit box room, I could hear whispers from the other bank customers who'd been watching our little drama unfold. Word would be all over town by dinner time. Olivia Walker, the paralegal who thought she was so smart, outsmarted by her blue-collar husband. In the parking lot, Rusty Klein tried one last time to salvage his dignity. "You think you're pretty clever, don't you, Walker?" "Clever enough," I said. "Question is, are you clever enough to stay away from my wife from now on?" We'll see about that. No, I said, stepping closer to him. We won't, because if I see you anywhere near Olivia again, if I hear you've been in contact with her, if I even suspect you're still playing games, I'll make sure Patricia Klein gets a copy of everything in that box. And somehow, I don't think your wife will be as understanding as I've been. His face went pale. You wouldn't? Try me. He got in his BMW and drove away without another word. Olivia walked over to her car, then stopped and looked back at me. What happens now, James? Now? Now we get divorced. Clean, simple, no fault. You keep your job, I keep my dignity, and we both move on with our lives. And the evidence? Stays between us, as long as you don't try to take me for everything I'm worth. Fair is fair, Olivia. You want out of this marriage? Fine. But you don't get to destroy me on your way out the door. She nodded slowly. I never meant for it to happen this way. Sure you did. You just didn't mean to get caught. I got in my truck and drove home, leaving her standing in the parking lot. In my rearview mirror, I could see her getting into her car, probably calling Rusty to figure out what to do next. But that was their problem now. I had evidence, I had leverage, and for the first time in months, I felt like I was back in control of my own life. The stupid husband had turned out to be smarter than anyone expected, and this was just the beginning. The video hit social media before I even got home from the bank. Some teenager with more phone than sense had been filming TikTok videos in the bank lobby when our little drama unfolded, and apparently the sight of a cheating wife getting exposed in public was too good not to share. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I had 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Ben was waiting on the porch, holding his phone and grinning like he'd just won the lottery. Dad, you're famous, he said, showing me the screen. Someone posted a video of you at the bank. It's got like 10,000 views already. I watched myself on the tiny screen, standing in the bank lobby with a box full of evidence while Olivia and Rusty Klein looked like they'd been hit by lightning. The audio wasn't great, but you could clearly hear me talking about hotel records and financial documents. The comments section was brutal. Your mom see this yet? I asked. Are you kidding? She's probably getting tagged in it every 5 minutes. Dad, is it true? About Mom and that lawyer guy? I looked at my son, this good kid who was about to watch his family fall apart in the most public way possible, and felt a stab of guilt. Yeah, Ben, it's true. He nodded slowly. I kind of figured. She's been acting weird for months, and that day I saw her with the BMW guy. I knew something was up. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. Are you kidding? Dad, you're like a legend right now. Everyone's talking about how you totally played Mom and her boyfriend. It's awesome. It didn't feel awesome. It felt necessary, but not awesome. My phone rang. Brick McGregor. Jesus Christ, Jimmy, what did you do? I just saw the video. Half the town's talking about it. I opened a safe deposit box. Is that illegal now? You know what I mean. You just nuked your wife's reputation from orbit, and Klein's too, from the looks of it. Good. Maybe next time they'll think twice before treating someone like an idiot. Speaking of Klein, you might want to know, word is his law firm called an emergency meeting this afternoon. Patricia Klein showed up at the office around noon, crying and screaming. Apparently someone sent her copies of those hotel photos. Huh. Wonder who would do a thing like that. Jimmy? I didn't send them, Brick. But I can't control what other people do with information once it's out there. Which was technically true. I hadn't sent the photos to Patricia Klein. I'd sent them to her sister, who I knew would make sure Patricia saw them within the hour. Sometimes you had to be creative about how you shared information. That evening, Carla Jensen stopped by. Carla was my lawyer, a sharp woman in her 50s who specialized in divorce cases and didn't suffer fools gladly. She'd been handling my legal affairs since I'd started my contracting business. James, we need to talk, she said, settling into my kitchen chair with a cup of coffee. I've been fielding calls all afternoon. Patricia Vance wants to negotiate a settlement. Apparently, Olivia's eager to get this wrapped up quickly and quietly. How quickly? She's willing to take 50% of the house value, 50% of the savings, and walk away from any claim on your pension. No alimony, no support payments beyond what you're already giving Ben for college. I thought about it. It was a fair deal, probably better than I'd get if we went to court. What's the catch? She wants you to agree not to release any more information about the affair. Basically, a mutual non-disclosure agreement. And if I don't agree? Then she'll fight the divorce, claim emotional distress, try to prove you entrapped her somehow. Could get messy and expensive. I looked out the window at Olivia's car in the driveway. She'd been home for an hour but hadn't come inside, probably sitting out there trying to figure out how to face me. Tell Patricia I'll consider it, but I want something else added to the deal. What? Olivia moves out by the end of the week. I'm tired of pretending we're still married. Carla made a note. I'll see what I can do. After she left, I went out to the driveway. Olivia was sitting in her car, staring at her phone. When she saw me coming, she rolled down the window. How bad is it? She asked. Bad. The video's got 50,000 views now. Someone made a meme out of your face when I played the recording. She closed her eyes. God. Carla says you want to settle. I just want this to be over, James. I want to move on with my life. Fair enough. But I want you out of the house by Friday. Where am I supposed to go? I don't know. Maybe Rusty's got a spare room. Oh, wait, I forgot. His wife kicked him out this afternoon. Guess you're both looking for new living arrangements. She stared at me. You're enjoying this. No, Olivia. I'm not enjoying this. I'm surviving it. There's a difference. The next morning brought more complications. I was in my workshop trying to lose myself in a woodworking project when Ben came downstairs with his phone. Dad, you need to see this. Someone posted pictures of Mom's car at some motel last night. I looked at the photos. Olivia's Honda Civic parked outside the Sunset Motel, the kind of place that rented rooms by the hour and didn't ask questions. The timestamp showed 11:47 p.m. Is she okay? I asked. I don't know. She's not answering her phone. Despite everything, I felt a flicker of concern. Olivia might be a cheating, manipulative woman, but she was still the mother of my children. Try calling her again. Ben dialed, waited, shook his head. Straight to voicemail. I was about to suggest we drive over to the motel when my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? James, it's me. Olivia's voice was small, defeated. Where are you? The Sunset Motel. Room 15. James, I need help. What kind of help? Someone broke into my car last night. Smashed the windows, slashed the tires, left a note calling me a whore. I closed my eyes. This was getting out of hand. Are you hurt? No, but I'm scared, and I don't have anywhere else to go. What about Rusty? He's not taking my calls right now. I think his wife hired a lawyer. He's trying to distance himself from the whole situation. Of course he was. Rusty Klein was the kind of man who was happy to play around as long as it was fun and easy, but the minute things got complicated, he'd run for cover. I'll be there in 20 minutes, I said. James, you don't have to... Yeah, I do. You're still Ben's mother. The Sunset Motel was exactly as depressing as it looked in the photos. Olivia's car was in the parking lot, windows spider-webbed with cracks, all 4 tires flat. Someone had spray-painted cheater across the windshield in red letters. I knocked on the door of room 15. Olivia opened it, and for a moment I barely recognized her. Her hair was a mess, her makeup smeared, and she was wearing the same clothes she'd had on yesterday. She looked like she'd aged 5 years overnight. Thank you for coming, she said. The motel room was a study in faded desperation. Brown carpet, wood paneling, a bed that sagged in the middle. It smelled like cigarettes and broken dreams. Pack your stuff, I said. You can stay in Ava's room until you figure out something permanent. James, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm telling. This has gone far enough. She started throwing clothes into a suitcase while I called a tow truck for her car. While we waited, she sat on the edge of the bed and stared at her hands. I never meant for it to get this ugly, she said. What did you think was going to happen, Olivia? You were planning to divorce me and take half of everything I owned. Did you think I was just going to smile and wave goodbye? I thought you'd be angry. I didn't think you'd be strategic. 23 years of construction work teaches you to plan ahead. You measure twice, cut once. You think about consequences before you make your move. And you think I didn't? I looked around the motel room. Did you? The tow truck arrived, and we followed it back to the house. Olivia went upstairs to Ava's room without saying anything else. I went to my workshop and called Brick. Someone vandalized Olivia's car last night, I said. Yeah, I heard. Wasn't me, if that's what you're wondering. I know it wasn't you, but this is getting out of control, Brick. I wanted to expose her cheating, not turn her into a public target. Jimmy, you can't control how people react to this stuff. You opened Pandora's box when you made that scene at the bank. Maybe, but I don't want Olivia getting hurt. Whatever she did, she doesn't deserve to have her car vandalized. What do you want me to do about it? Keep your ears open. If you hear anyone talking about doing something else to her, let me know. You still care about her. I care about my kids, and they don't need to see their mother getting terrorized by a bunch of idiots with too much time on their hands. That evening, Olivia came downstairs while I was making dinner. She looked better, showered, changed clothes, some of her usual composure restored. "Thank you," she said, "for letting me stay here." "Don't thank me yet. We still need to talk about the divorce settlement. I'll take whatever you think is fair." "What I think is fair is 50-50 on everything we built together, and you don't try to destroy me in court. Sound reasonable?" She nodded. "James, about Russell. I don't want to hear about Russell. That's between you and him. He's not going to leave his wife. Did you think he was? I hoped he might. I thought maybe if we were both free." I looked at her, this woman I'd been married to for 19 years, and felt something that might have been pity. "Olivia, guys like Russell Klein don't leave their wives for their paralegals. They have affairs with their paralegals. There's a difference." She was quiet for a long moment. "I know that now." "Good. Maybe you'll make better choices next time." The divorce papers were signed 3 days later. Clean, simple, no fault. Olivia got her 50%, I kept my dignity, and we both moved on with our lives. But as I watched her pack her things and move into a small apartment across town, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't really over. Russell Klein was still out there, probably looking for a way to get back at me for ruining his comfortable little arrangement. And I was right. 2 weeks later, Brick called with news that Klein had been asking around about me, trying to find dirt he could use. Apparently, he wasn't content to just slink away and lick his wounds. That was fine with me. If Rusty Klein wanted to play games, I was ready for round 2. And this time, I wouldn't be content with just exposing his secrets. This time, I was going to destroy him. Russell Klein made his first mistake on a Tuesday night in October. I was at Murphy's bar, shooting pool with some of the guys from my old crew, when Brick McGregor walked in with a grim expression on his face. "We got a problem, Jimmy," he said, pulling me aside. "Klein's been busy. He hired a private investigator to dig up dirt on you." "Find anything interesting?" "That's not the point. The point is, he's not letting this go. Word is, he's trying to build a case that you harassed him and Olivia, maybe even stalked them. He's talking about filing a restraining order." I thought about that while I lined up my next shot. "Let him try. I've got documentation of everything I did. It was all legal." "Maybe. But he's also been spreading stories around town, telling people you threatened him, that you're unstable, that Olivia was afraid of you. He's trying to flip the narrative, make you the bad guy." The pool cue felt solid in my hands, familiar, like a tool, something I could use to build or break things, depending on what needed doing. "What kind of stories?" "The kind that make you sound like a dangerous, controlling husband who drove his wife into another man's arms. He's got people feeling sorry for Olivia, saying she was trapped in an abusive marriage." I sank the 8-ball and straightened up. "Abusive marriage. That's rich." "Jimmy, I'm serious. This guy's playing for keeps. He's trying to destroy your reputation the same way you destroyed his. The difference is, I told the truth. What's he doing? Lying through his teeth. But sometimes lies spread faster than truth, especially when they're more interesting." I handed my pool cue to one of the guys and headed for the door. "Come on, Brick. Time to pay Mr. Klein a visit." "Jimmy, that's exactly what he wants you to do. He's probably hoping you'll do something stupid so he can call the cops." "Who says I'm going to do something stupid?" Russell Klein lived in Brookside Estates, the kind of neighborhood where the houses had 3-car garages and the lawns looked like golf courses. His house was a colonial with white columns and a circular driveway, the sort of place that screamed, "I'm important and I want everyone to know it." His BMW was in the driveway, along with a Honda Accord that probably belonged to his wife. I parked on the street and walked up to the front door like I was making a social call. Klein answered the door himself, and his face went pale when he saw me. "Walker, what do you want?" "Just thought I'd stop by and introduce myself to your wife. Patricia, right? I hear she's a lovely woman. Get off my property." "Actually, I'm on the sidewalk, public property, but I'd be happy to come inside and have a chat with both of you." "Patricia?" Klein called over his shoulder. "Call the police?" "Now, Rusty, is that any way to treat a neighbor? I just want to have a friendly conversation." A woman appeared behind Klein, middle-aged, well-dressed, with the kind of nervous energy that came from living with a man who brought his problems home. "Russell, what's going on?" "Mrs. Klein," I said, tipping an imaginary hat. "James Walker. I believe you and I have a mutual acquaintance." Understanding dawned in her eyes. "You're Olivia's husband." "Ex-husband, as of last month. But yes, that's me. The abusive, controlling husband who drove his poor wife into your husband's arms." Russell Klein stepped forward. "You need to leave. Now." "In a minute. First, I wanted to give Mrs. Klein something." I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a manila envelope. Some photos I thought she might find interesting. Professional quality, time-stamped, very clear images. Patricia Klein took the envelope with trembling hands. "Russell, what is this?" "Don't look at those," Klein said. "He's trying to cause trouble." But she was already opening the envelope, pulling out the photos Brick had taken. Her face went through a series of expressions: confusion, recognition, understanding, and finally, cold fury. "You bastard," she whispered, and for a moment I wasn't sure if she was talking to me or her husband. Then she slapped Russell Klein across the face so hard the sound echoed off the columns of his fancy house. "Patricia, let me explain." "Explain what?" "Explain how you've been screwing your paralegal for 6 months. Explain how you've been spending our money on hotel rooms and jewelry for your whore." "She's not a whore," Klein said, which was probably the worst possible thing he could have said at that moment. Patricia Klein turned to me. "Mr. Walker, would you like to come inside? I think we should have a conversation." "I'd be delighted." Klein tried to block the doorway. "You're not coming into my house." "Actually," Patricia said, "it's my house too, and I'm inviting him in." The inside of the Klein house was exactly what I'd expected. Expensive furniture, original art, the kind of tasteful wealth that came from years of successful legal practice. Patricia led me to the living room and offered me a drink. "Scotch, if you have it." She poured 3 glasses, handed one to me, kept one for herself, and threw the third at her husband. Russell Klein stood there dripping 18-year-old single malt and looking like he wanted to crawl into a hole. "So," Patricia said, settling into a leather chair, "tell me about my husband's affair." For the next hour, I told her everything. The hotel meetings, the money Klein had spent, the recordings I'd made, the way he'd tried to help Olivia take me for everything I was worth. Patricia listened without interruption, occasionally asking for clarification, taking notes in a small notebook she'd produced from somewhere. Klein tried to leave twice, but each time his wife ordered him to sit down and shut up. "And now," I concluded, "your husband's been spreading lies around town, trying to make me look like the bad guy in all this, calling me abusive, dangerous, unstable, basically trying to destroy my reputation the same way I destroyed his." Patricia looked at her husband with the kind of cold contempt usually reserved for something you'd scrape off your shoe. "Is that true, Russell?" I was protecting myself. This man humiliated me in public, cost me my job. "You cost yourself your job when you decided to cheat on me with your employee." "Patricia, please, we can work through this." "No," she said quietly. "We can't. 22 years of marriage, Russell. 22 years, and you threw it away for what? A middle-aged paralegal with delusions of grandeur." She turned back to me. "Mr. Walker, I want to apologize for my husband's behavior, both the affair and his recent attempts to damage your reputation." "Apology accepted, Mrs. Klein. And I want you to know that as of tomorrow morning, I'll be filing for divorce. My attorney will be in touch with Russell's firm about his assets, his pension, his partnership stake, everything." Klein's face went white. "You can't do that. The firm won't allow. The firm will do exactly what my attorney tells them to do, because the alternative is a very public, very messy divorce trial where all of this comes out in court, including the financial records showing how much partnership money you spent on your girlfriend." She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the perfectly manicured lawn. "You know what the funny thing is, Russell? I actually suspected something was going on. A wife knows, but I kept telling myself I was being paranoid, that you wouldn't be stupid enough to risk everything we'd built together. Patricia, I was wrong. You were exactly that stupid." I finished my scotch and stood up. "Well, this has been illuminating, but I should probably get going." Patricia Klein walked me to the door. "Mr. Walker, I hope you'll accept my apology again, and I hope you know that Russell won't be spreading any more lies about you. Will you, Russell?" Klein, still dripping scotch and looking like a man who'd just watched his life collapse, shook his head. "Good. Because if I hear that he's been talking about you, or bothering you, or causing you any more trouble, I'll make sure those photos end up in the newspaper, along with the financial records showing how he embezzled partnership funds to pay for his affair." "Embezzled?" I asked. "Partnership expense account," she said with a cold smile. "Supposed to be for client entertainment. I doubt the other partners will be amused to learn it was being used for hotel rooms and jewelry for Russell's mistress." I left the Klein house feeling better than I had in months. Russell Klein was finished, his marriage, his career, his reputation, all destroyed by his own stupidity and greed. And the best part was, I hadn't had to do anything illegal or unethical. I just told the truth to the right person at the right time, but I should have known it wasn't over. Men like Russell Klein don't go down quietly, and they don't go down smart. 3 days later, Brick called with bad news. Klein's lost it, Jimmy. Completely lost it. He's been drinking, talking crazy, making threats. Word is he's planning something. What kind of something? The kind where he tries to get back at you for ruining his life. Jimmy, I think he might be dangerous. Dangerous how? The kind of dangerous where you should watch your back. Maybe stay somewhere else for a few days. But I didn't stay somewhere else. I went home, checked the locks on my doors, and waited. If Russell Klein wanted to play one more hand, I was ready for him. I just hoped he was ready for what happened when he lost. The storm hit on a Thursday night in November, one of those late-season tempests that comes out of nowhere and reminds you that New England weather doesn't follow anyone's schedule. I was in my workshop, putting the finishing touches on a jewelry box I'd been making for Ava's birthday, when I heard the first crash of thunder. The power flickered twice, then went out completely, leaving me in darkness except for the battery-powered radio I kept on the workbench. The weather service was calling for high winds, heavy rain, and the possibility of flooding in low-lying areas. A perfect night to stay inside and mind your own business, which is probably why Russell Klein chose it to make his move. I heard the glass break upstairs around midnight. Not a lot of glass, just enough to let someone know a window had been forced. I turned off the radio and listened, counting the seconds between lightning flashes and thunder, calculating how close the storm was getting. Footsteps on the kitchen floor, trying to be quiet but not succeeding. Russell Klein had apparently never learned how to move silently through a house, which made sense. Rich lawyers probably didn't spend much time sneaking around in the dark. I picked up my phone and opened the app I'd installed 2 weeks ago, the one that connected to the security cameras Brick had helped me set up around the house. Sure enough, there was Klein, standing in my kitchen, soaking wet and holding what looked like a crowbar. He was also talking to himself, which the microphones picked up clearly. Bastard thinks he's so smart, thinks he can destroy my life and just walk away. We'll see about that. I opened the app that controlled my house's smart home system, another upgrade I'd made recently, and started recording everything. Whatever Klein was planning to do, I wanted it documented. He moved through the house like a man with a purpose, heading straight for my home office. I watched him rifle through my desk, looking for something. When he didn't find it, he got frustrated and started throwing papers around. "Where is it?" he muttered. "Has to be here somewhere." I had no idea what he was looking for, but I was curious enough to find out. I climbed the stairs from the workshop, moving as quietly as 23 years of construction work had taught me. The storm covered any noise I might have made. Klein was still in the office when I reached the main floor, now going through my filing cabinet. He'd found the folder labeled Divorce and was photographing the contents with his phone. "Looking for something specific, Rusty?" He spun around, the crowbar raised like a weapon. In the lightning flashes coming through the window, he looked like a drowned rat with delusions of grandeur. "Walker, you son of a bitch." "That's not very nice, Rusty, especially considering you're standing in my house uninvited, going through my private papers. You destroyed my life. I documented your affair. You destroyed your own life." He swung the crowbar at me, but Klein was a lawyer, not a fighter. I stepped aside easily and grabbed his wrist, twisting until he dropped the weapon. Now, Rusty, no need for violence. We're civilized men, aren't we? Let go of me." "In a minute. First, I want to know what you're looking for." "Evidence. Proof that you set me up, that you planned this whole thing." "I did plan it. That's what smart people do when they discover their wives are cheating. They gather evidence." I twisted his wrist a little harder, and he gasped. "But you already knew that, didn't you? That's not what you're really looking for." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. You're looking for something you can use to get back at me. Maybe some financial records you can doctor, some personal information you can use to embarrass me, something to make you feel like you won after all." Lightning flashed again, illuminating Klein's face. He looked desperate, unhinged, like a man who'd lost everything and had nothing left to lose. "You have no idea what you've cost me," he said. "Let me guess. Your wife took you for everything you're worth. Your law firm kicked you out. Your reputation's shot. Your girlfriend won't return your calls." His expression told me I'd hit all the marks. Poor Rusty. Turns out actions have consequences. Who could have predicted that? "I'm going to destroy you the same way you destroyed me." "With what?" "You've got nothing, Klein. No evidence, no leverage, no allies. You're a washed-up lawyer with a drinking problem and a history of bad decisions." I let go of his wrist and stepped back. "But I'll tell you what. I'm feeling generous tonight. You leave now, walk away, never bother me or my family again, and I won't call the cops. We'll call it even." Klein rubbed his wrist and looked around the office, probably calculating his chances of finding something useful before I threw him out. "Or," I continued, You can keep playing games, and I'll show you what real consequences look like. You're threatening me. I'm educating you. There's a difference. He bent down and picked up the crowbar, hefting it like he was considering another swing. You think you're untouchable, don't you? Think you're so much smarter than everyone else. Smarter than you, anyway. Which, let's be honest, isn't setting the bar very high. That's when he snapped. Klein came at me with the crowbar raised, screaming something about justice and revenge. But anger makes people stupid, and Klein was already starting from a deficit in the intelligence department. I grabbed a heavy glass paperweight from my desk and threw it at the window behind him. The glass shattered with a crash that was audible even over the thunder, and Klein spun around, thinking someone was breaking in. While he was distracted, I tackled him from behind, driving him to the floor. The crowbar went flying, and Klein went down hard, his head bouncing off the hardwood. Stay down, Rusty. This doesn't have to get any uglier. But Klein was beyond reason now. He rolled over and tried to grab the crowbar, so I did the only thing I could think of. I sat on him. Get off me. Nope, not until you calm down and start thinking clearly. I'll have you arrested for assault. You broke into my house, Rusty. You threatened me with a weapon. This is self-defense. I pulled out my phone and opened the security camera app. Smile, Rusty. You're on camera. Klein's struggles stopped as he processed what I'd said. Camera? Cameras, plural. I've got the whole thing recorded. You breaking in, going through my papers, threatening me with a crowbar. Should make for interesting viewing at your trial. You set me up. I protected myself. Again. You'd think you would have learned by now. Klein went limp beneath me, finally understanding that he'd walked into another trap. What do you want? I want you to disappear, Rusty. Leave town, start over somewhere else. Stop trying to get revenge for your own stupidity. And if I don't? Then I release the video of you breaking into my house and threatening me, along with all the other evidence I've been collecting about your recent activities. What other evidence? I smiled down at him. Did you really think I wasn't watching you, Rusty? Keeping track of what you've been up to since your life fell apart? The truth was, Brick had been following Klein for weeks, documenting his descent into alcoholism and desperation. We had photos of him sleeping in his car, videos of him being thrown out of bars, recordings of him making drunken threats about getting revenge on me. You're insane, Klein said. I'm thorough. There's a difference. I got off him and stepped back, keeping the phone camera pointed at his face. So, what's it going to be, Rusty? Are you going to be smart for once in your life, or do I have to make this decision for you? Klein sat up slowly, looking around the office like he was seeing it for the first time. You really did plan all of this? From the moment I found out about the affair, I knew you'd try something eventually. Men like you always do. You can't accept that you lost fair and square. Fair and square? You destroyed my marriage, my career. You did that when you decided to cheat on your wife with my wife. I just made sure everyone found out about it. Klein struggled to his feet, swaying slightly. He'd been drinking before he broke in, and the adrenaline was starting to wear off. This isn't over, he said. Yes, it is. Because if I see you again, if I hear you've been bothering me or my family, if you so much as drive down my street, I'll release everything. The video of tonight, the photos from the past few weeks, the recordings of you threatening me, all of it. I walked over to the window and looked out at the storm. The rain was coming down in sheets now, turning the street into a river. You know what the funny thing is, Rusty? You could have just walked away after the divorce, licked your wounds, started over, maybe learned something from the experience, but you couldn't let it go. You had to try to get even. You humiliated me. You humiliated yourself. I just gave you the opportunity. Klein picked up the crowbar, and for a moment I thought he might try one more swing. Instead, he threw it aside and headed for the door. This isn't over, he said again. Yeah, it is. And Rusty, next time you want to break into someone's house, maybe pick a night when there isn't a storm. The noise covers a lot of things, but it also makes you careless. He left through the front door, not bothering to close it behind him. I watched from the window as he stumbled to his car, a beat-up Honda that had seen better days. His BMW was apparently another casualty of his divorce. I called the police anyway, just to have it on record. When they arrived 20 minutes later, I showed them the broken window, the security camera footage, and Klein's fingerprints on the crowbar. They took a report and promised to pick him up for questioning. But I knew they wouldn't find him. Men like Russell Klein, when they finally hit bottom, tend to disappear rather than face the consequences of their actions. I was right. Klein left town that night, driving through the storm toward whatever was left of his life. Brick heard from a contact at the state police that he'd been spotted heading west on the interstate, probably trying to get as far away from his mistakes as possible. The next morning, I called a glazier to fix the broken window and spent some time cleaning up the office. The storm had passed, leaving behind the kind of crisp, clear day that makes you grateful to be alive. Ben came by around noon, ostensibly to help with the cleanup, but really to hear the story of Klein's final desperate gambit. "So he actually broke into the house with a crowbar?" he asked, sweeping up glass. "Yep, like something out of a bad movie." "And you had cameras recording the whole thing?" "Every second. Your old man might be getting older, but he's not getting stupider." Ben grinned. "Dad, you're like a criminal mastermind, except you're catching the criminals instead of being one." "I'm just a guy who pays attention, Ben. Most people don't. They go through life assuming everyone else is as honest as they are, and they get surprised when it turns out they're wrong." "Is it over now? With Klein and everything?" I looked out the window at the street, clean and bright in the aftermath of the storm. "Yeah, kiddo, it's over." And it was. Russell Klein never came back to town, never tried to contact me or my family again. Word filtered back through Brick's network that he'd ended up in Florida, working for a small firm that handled personal injury cases. Apparently, he'd learned to keep his head down and his mouth shut. Olivia found a job with another law firm in the next town over, somewhere that didn't know about her history with Klein. She and I maintained a civil relationship for the sake of the kids, but we were never going to be friends. As for me, I went back to my retirement projects, my woodworking, and the quiet satisfaction of having outmaneuvered people who thought they were smarter than a blue-collar contractor. Because in the end, that's what it all came down to. Intelligence isn't about how many degrees you have or how much money you make. It's about paying attention, thinking ahead, and understanding that actions have consequences. Russell Klein and Olivia had forgotten that lesson, and it cost them everything. I never forgot it, and it saved my life. Standing in my workshop that evening, putting the finishing touches on Ava's jewelry box, I reflected on everything that had happened. The betrayal, the revenge, the final confrontation with Klein. It had been ugly and painful and necessary. But it was over now, and I was still standing. Older, maybe a little wiser, definitely more careful about who I trusted, but still standing. The stupid husband had turned out to be smarter than anyone expected, including himself. And that was enough.